Imagine this. You are watching someone use a cracked piece of flint to dig engorged lice out of their partner's bleeding scalp. That is what affection looks like tonight. Just 10 feet away, two other people are staring at the dirt, desperately pretending the entire group didn't just hear exactly what they were doing in the pitch dark. You probably picture prehistoric life as simple, honest, and almost innocent. A noble, pure struggle against nature. But that version is a polite lie. The real story was messier, meaner, and far more intimately corrupted than the cleaned-up version historians prefer to teach. Today, we are going through 20 sinful secrets of prehistoric life that history usually keeps quiet. And by the end, you will understand why the ancient world was never pure. It was just too busy surviving to hide its darkest appetites. If you like history with the comfort stripped out of it, subscribe. On number 20, there was almost no privacy. Picture this. You sleep beside the same people you eat with, bleed with, argue with, and depend on. There are no walls, no bedrooms, no closed doors. No private corner where your life belongs only to you. If attraction starts, everyone sees it. If a couple fights, everyone hears it. If someone slips away at night, half the group already knows by morning. Even silence means something in a place that small. A pause, a glance, a body turning away from another body. All of it gets read, remembered, and discussed without a single formal conversation. In a world like that, secrecy was thin, and gossip traveled faster than fire. This one gets ugly fast. On number 19, jealousy was not a side emotion. It was a survival problem. You think jealousy belongs to love stories. In prehistory, it could poison an entire group. A rejected male was not just heartbroken. He was still sleeping 10 feet away. A jealous woman was not quietly suffering in private. She was still sharing food, tools, and labor with the person she hated. Every wounded feeling had to live in the middle of camp, where tension could spread to everyone. One grudge could ruin a hunt. One triangle could split work. One bad decision could turn desire into a chain of resentment that touched children, food access, and safety. That was not drama. It was social damage. But that was only the beginning. On number 18, sex was probably a lot less romantic than people want to imagine. Modern people love projecting passion onto the past. Candlelight without candles. Chemistry without consequences. But prehistoric intimacy likely happened in exhaustion, in cramped space, in smoke, in cold, with other bodies nearby, and no clean separation between tenderness and necessity. Sometimes it may have meant affection. Sometimes it may have meant comfort. Sometimes it may have meant pressure, duty, or timing. It may have happened after grief, after hunger, after conflict, after a night when both people were too tired to speak. The ancient world did not stop being harsh just because two people wanted each other. Desire had to work in the same place as fatigue, dirt, obligation, and fear. Now comes the part people like to ignore. On number 17, cheating may have been harder to hide, but not impossible. In a small group, secrecy had very short legs. Still, humans have always been clever when desire and risk start working together. A meeting during water collection, a long walk to gather wood, a sleeping shift that lasts a little too long, a shared joke that becomes a pattern. We may never know exactly how often it happened, But human nature did not suddenly appear in the Bronze Age. Temptation was already there. It was just wearing animal skins. And in a world with no written vows, betrayal still existed, because betrayal does not need paperwork. It only needs trust, opportunity, and one person willing to gamble the group will not notice. And this is where the fantasy starts cracking. On number 16, status could make people attractive even when beauty did not. You think desire begins with looks. In a hard landscape, usefulness can outrank beauty very quickly. The person who knows where water is hidden. The one who can restart a fire in bad weather. The one who can calm a fight before it becomes exile. The one who remembers where the herd turned last season. Competence has always been seductive. Prehistory just stripped away the polite language around it. Attraction was often tied to whoever made your life more survivable. That means a face could draw attention, but reliability kept it. Beauty is pleasant. Skill gets people through winter. The ugly truth is this. On number 15, partnerships were often practical before they became emotional. People like to imagine a lightning strike of ancient love, two wild souls seeing each other across the flames. That may have happened sometimes, but much of prehistoric bonding was likely built from proximity, repetition, and need. You work beside someone long enough, survive enough bad nights together, and your attachment grows roots whether you planned it or not. Shared labor does strange things to the heart. So does repeated relief. The one who helps lift meat, soothe a child, notice danger, and keep the fire alive starts becoming emotionally necessary before anyone says it aloud. Love may have come later. Function usually came first. As brutal as that sounds, the next part was worse. On number 14, grief and desire could sit in the same body at the same time. A partner dies. The loss is real. The shock is real. The emptiness beside you at night is real. But so is hunger. So is winter. So is the pressure to reattach before the group starts seeing you as unstable, vulnerable, or useless. That means a person could be mourning one bond while slipping into another. Not because they were cold, because the world around them was. The heart did not get time off. It had to keep beating inside a body that still needed warmth, food, protection, and a reason for the group to keep making space for it. That is one of the darkest truths about ancient intimacy. Grief did not end desire. It sat next to it. History usually skips this part for obvious reasons. On number 13, power imbalances were everywhere. Age, strength, fertility, skill, group approval, access to food, access to protection. All of it shaped who got to choose and who did not. A younger person may have had attraction. An older person may have had leverage. A weaker person may have had feelings. A stronger one may have had the final say. We like clean stories about consent because they feel morally stable. Prehistory was not morally stable. It was a world where dependency could distort every bond it touched. And the darker part is this. A bond can feel normal from the inside when a whole culture is built to expect imbalance. No one needed to announce the hierarchy. Everyone was already living inside it. The version you've probably imagined is far too clean. On number 12, fertility was never just personal. Pregnancy was not a private family matter. It affected labor, movement, food planning, risk, and the future size of the group. That means sexuality was never just about pleasure. It sat inside a larger system of survival. A fertile woman was not simply a person with choices. She was also a strategic asset to the group. That changes the emotional temperature of everything around her. It changes who watches her. It changes how older women talk to her. It changes how males compete around her. It changes how much room she really has to make a decision that belongs only to herself. In that setting, biology was public business. And somehow, it gets worse. On number 11, older women may have known more than everyone else about everyone else. Prehistoric life did not come with written records, but it came with memory. Older women likely tracked patterns no one said out loud. Who was pairing off? Who was failing to conceive? Who kept drifting toward whom? Who was weak? Who was useful? Who was dangerous? In a small world, social intelligence becomes a form of control. The person who sees everything does not need physical power to shape outcomes. She only needs timing, influence, and a way of speaking that makes her judgment sound like common sense. Historians often focus on male force because it is easier to picture. But quiet surveillance can run a camp just as effectively. Now add hunger to that picture. On number 10, desire did not disappear just because people were starving. This is one of the secrets modern people resist the most. We imagine hardship cancels appetite. It does not. Hunger can narrow life, but it does not erase the body. People still wanted touch, still wanted relief, still wanted closeness, distraction, or proof that life had not become pure misery. Desire may even have mattered more in bad times because it offered a brief interruption to fear. That does not make it noble. It makes it human. A starving person can still want someone. A grieving person can still want someone. A frightened person can still want someone. Need and desire were sharing the same fire. This one is almost too dark to say out loud. On number 9, children grew up seeing far more than we would tolerate. There was little privacy and little separation between adult life and everyone else. Children would have seen births, wounds, arguments, flirting, pair bonding, grief, and the emotional weather of the group up close. They would have learned early who slept beside whom, who had influence, who was losing it, who fought, who shared, who came back injured, and who did not come back at all. That does not mean prehistory was uniquely corrupt. It means the modern idea of shielding childhood was a luxury they did not have. Innocence, in the clean modern sense, was hard to maintain in a cave. Children were not standing outside the human story. They were already in it. The bones tell us one thing. Human nature fills in the rest. On number 8, shame worked differently. Shame did exist. Humans are social enough for that. But it likely did not follow the same rules modern societies inherited from religion, law, and later moral systems. What was shameful may have had less to do with private acts and more to do with public consequences. Not what you did in secret, but whether it disrupted the group. Not desire itself, but whether desire created conflict, instability, or risk. That means a hidden act might matter less than a visible mess. Ancient morality may have been colder than ours, but not softer. It judged less by purity and more by fallout. And for women, the reality was often harsher. On number 7, beauty could be useful, but youth was usually more valuable. A strong face, healthy skin, thick hair, steady movement, all of that would have mattered. But in a dangerous prehistoric setting, youth often signaled fertility, recovery, and a longer survival horizon. That changes the way attraction works. It also changes the cruelty of it. Aging did not just alter how a person looked. It could alter how much bargaining power they had left. A woman could still have intelligence, status, and skill, but everyone around her understood the arithmetic of the body. Nature was not feeling generous, and neither were the people trying to survive inside it. What makes this worse is how normal it all was. On number 6, some bonds may have started with comfort and ended in duty. A person who made you laugh in summer may become the person you stay with in winter because leaving would be too costly. A bond that began with genuine attraction might harden into a practical arrangement once children, food, injury, and group politics close in. That is one of the darkest parts of prehistoric intimacy. Feelings may have started the bond. Survival finished writing it. And once routine locks in, people do what humans have always done. They adapt. They tell themselves a story they can live inside. They call endurance devotion, because that version hurts less. And this next one is genuinely disturbing. On number 5, reputation was more intimate than love. In a small group, people did not just know your face. They knew your habits. Whether you shared food well, whether you got violent under pressure, whether you were lazy, careless, fertile, jealous, kind, selfish, or brave when it counted. Attraction did not happen in a vacuum. By the time someone touched you, they probably already knew what you were like in a crisis. They had seen you hungry. They had seen you tired. They had seen you after loss. In that kind of world, reputation got into bed before you did. There was almost no room to perform a fake self for long. Here's what nobody tells you. On number 4, desire could cross bonds the group still needed. People do not stop noticing each other just because a structure exists. Pair bonds, alliances, family expectations, none of that kills temptation. It just makes temptation expensive. And in a tiny prehistoric community, one forbidden attraction could ripple outward into food access, male rivalry, maternal conflict, or group fracture. Private longing was never fully private when 20 lives leaned on the same fragile order. That is why small betrayals could become large disasters. In a modern city, a secret affair may ruin a household. In prehistory, it could weaken a camp. The ugly truth is this. On number 3, tenderness and coercion may have lived uncomfortably close together. This is the point where the past becomes hard to narrate cleanly. Some partnerships were probably warm, protective, and deeply attached. Others may have contained pressure so normal to that world, nobody named it as force. The same bond could include care, dependence, fear, routine, and real attachment all at once. That is difficult to hear because modern people want simple categories. Prehistory did not always offer them. A person could feel safer beside someone they never truly chose. A person could love someone who also frightened them. Human bonds are messy now. They were not cleaner when life was harder. This one is almost too dark to say out loud. On number 2, prehistoric life was not innocent. It was just undocumented. That may be the secret underneath all the others. People lie, hide, desire, manipulate, attach, betray, forgive, and repeat. The ancient world was full of the same species looking back at us from the dark. They did not have confession booths, legal contracts, scandal sheets, or therapists, but they had bodies, memory, hunger, insecurity, and time together under pressure. Remove the paperwork, and human behavior does not become pure. It becomes harder to trace. Historians are often forced to stay cautious because the evidence is broken. Human nature is what makes the broken pieces feel familiar. And this is where the fantasy falls apart completely. On number 1, what historians ignore is not sin itself. It is proximity. That is the deepest secret in the whole subject. We imagine sin as something theatrical: betrayal, lust, jealousy, power, secrecy. But in prehistory, all of that happened inches away from survival. The person you desired was also carrying your child, sharing your fire, holding your tool, or guarding your sleep. The person you envied was someone you still needed alive tomorrow. The person who hurt you might also be the one helping you through winter. That changes everything. It means prehistoric life was not morally simple. It was morally crowded. Every appetite, every mistake, every hidden motive had to live inside a tiny human circle with nowhere to go. That is why the past feels so dark when you stop cleaning it up. It was not a world without sin. It was a world where sin had no room to hide. People like to imagine prehistoric life as crude but pure, dirty but honest, violent but morally simple. But the real version was built on closeness, pressure, appetite, and need. These were not innocent cave people stumbling through a half-human world. They were recognizably human in all the ways that matter most. Strip away the fantasy, and what remains is not primitive simplicity. It is human behavior with nowhere to hide. Which one shocked you the most? Drop it in the comments, and subscribe for more dark prehistory.